good afternoon. You're watching Closing Trades on ET now. I'm Anisha Jain. With me is Nikunj Dalme. And for now, there's a bit of a recovery on the screen. For what it's worth, we don't know how the last 1 hour is going to pan out of the trading session. But for now, we're cruising along at the highest point of the day, above the mark of 24,100, very close to 24,150. It's Pharma which is doing well in the trading session today. So a Cipla, a Divi's, a Sun Pharma, these are your top gainers if you're looking at the frontline names coming in from the Pharma index. So that's something to watch out for. But yes, Nifty back above 24,100. The December expiry has started on a bit of a positive note after that, crack that we saw yesterday in the last 1 hour. Today, it's holding out quite okay. Pharma, as I talked about, is one space of green. Cement also is doing quite well. We saw that channel check coming in, that there has been a bit of a price hike that has been taken in the month gone by. And then insurance is also reacting to our exclusive, which talked about that IRDAI has not issued any directive restricting the business coming in from banks. Auto stocks, they are in focus just ahead of that November sales data that we're expecting over the weekend. Just ahead of that, there are some stocks which are reacting positively. So M&M, after seeing a bit of a decline over the last 2 to 3 trading session, is in green today. Apart from, of course, the equity markets, lots of headlines from the money market as well. Rupee has hit a fresh low, 84.50 on the cards, just ahead of the GDP data, wherein we are expecting it to be a moderation of sorts. Remember, we were speaking with, Sonal from Nomura earlier, who said that there is a downside risk to the year estimates when it comes to GDP. So that's something to watch out for. But overall, Nikunj, it's a steady ship. As we were saying, perhaps that poison that we saw in the month of October got done in November, and now it's going to be a bit of a sideways consolidating move.
You know, whenever I do a Friday show, I always have one thing, TGIF.
Thank God it's Friday.
Thank God it's Friday. But today, why it is Friday?
It's not that great a rally as well. It's okay.
Where you were a week ago versus where you are.
Fair enough.
You have to always look at relative, which is that where you were almost in a bombed out situation, same time Thursday. Adani stocks were falling, dollar index was marching up, Kunal was bearish, Nuresh in a sense was not very confident that things were coming up. I'm just putting the sentiment here.
Yeah.
What has changed? Now Kunal is looking upbeat. Very important, he's wearing pink. That's what I'm judging it from, right? So all I'm saying is that where we were versus where we are right now, I think there is a big departure in both in terms of mood, in terms of the market view, and in terms of the mood. A lot has been thrown at the market. I've been sticking my neck out and saying that, look, a lot has been thrown at the market, and the market in a sense had to deal with just too much of negative news. There was this entire global adjustment after the US election. Then we saw the fiasco or yet again in Adani group of stocks. FI selling has been in abundance. The China trade, which in a sense shook the pedestal for emerging markets in the month of October and early November. So a lot has been thrown at the market, and earnings season by the way has not been great. But despite all that, the markets have managed to make a comeback. For Adani group of stocks, what appeared like a deep cut may just be is now looking like more like a price nick, little bit of volatility. FI selling seems to be getting reduced. We are starting a fresh series. In stocks which have been included in the FNO series, they are off to a good start. So for me, Anisha, if you really talk about the mood point is that long built-up is happening in stocks which are part of FNO now, especially Adani group of names, maybe a Geo Financial, LIC.
Yeah.
So, the action in those 40 stocks, 45 stocks, I think is more constructive, which means the market's appetite to buy into stocks, I think, is there. These are good, these are names you can relate to, and they represent all genres of earning, all genre of sectors, fintech, insurance, old economy, tech, retail, and most of these stocks are in for a good FNO inclusion on the first day of the inclusion, and that in a sense is also adding to the market mood point.
In fact, since we're talking about the FNO inclusions, why not take it across to Ansh, who will be standing by to run us through as to what it really means in terms of the stocks which are getting included in FNO, which are the names of the stocks, the likes of Zomato, Geo Financial Services, and what kind of inflows we can see. Over to you, Ansh.
First, SEBI had come up with this eligibility criteria for inclusion and exclusion of stocks from this derivative segment back in August. Now, as per that, to enter or re-enter the FNO segment, it must meet the criteria for 6 consecutive months. The criteria was first, maintaining average daily market cap and traded value among top 500 companies. Second was the stock must have an average median quarter sigma order size of at least 75 lakh. Third is MWPL value of around 1,500 crore rupees, whereas fourth fourth is average daily delivery value of 35 crore. Now, as per this eligibility criteria, there are 45 stocks that have been added to the list, which is effective from today. And the notable names in this is Zomato, Jio Financial, Nykaa, DMart, and Paytm. Now, with this, the total FNO share now has increased to 223. So now we have more stocks to trade in FNO.
Okay. You know, sometimes if we cut across to our, studio conversations, they're quite fascinating. So Kunal has a theory on what exactly?
Yeah, the
Yellow
markets,
color.
the markets.
No, but are we in for a trend rally now? That is, I think, the most important point. I mean, are we in for what typically could be called as a solid Christmas rally?
Yeah, so I think Christmas rally could be at play. We were making this point yesterday also, Nikunj, that I don't expect the markets to correct very sharply, even though yesterday was one of day where the indices corrected. But you look at the context of the market or the different asset classes, dollar index is now sub 106 levels. So that's one of the major reasons why our markets had fallen very sharply. Now, if that asset class continues to get into a downtrend, there's no reason why our markets would further get into a corrective mode, and there's bound to be a point where the market stabilizes. What we are seeing today is an exact stabilization for the indices. So yes, the Nifty is outperforming the Bank Nifty. The market breadth in the last 2 days, even yesterday and today, the market breadth has been a lot more positive. Mid caps are seeing follow through price action. There is breakout. There are volumes, volume participations, which is what we're seeing as a pattern for many stocks, and that is generally a sign of risk appetite coming back. So I'm not sure whether this phenomenon is going to last for the entire 1 month, but it looks like that the markets are getting into a stabilization phase. And I think even if that happens for the next 1 or 2 weeks, we are good for a December rally, at least for many of the stocks as well as sectors.
Okay, December rally indeed. Let's see, but let's put the spotlight on some of the stocks and news as well, starting with, of course, what's happening to some of the Adani group of companies. They are bouncing back. So, green, transmission, energy solutions, all of that will come up for you on the screen. All of those stocks holding up comfortably. Airtel is the one which is in focus. ICICI Securities has upgraded the stock to a buy versus an add. So that stock is up a solid 5%. And you also have Z Entertainment in focus, wherein shareholders have rejected Puneet Goenka to be appointed back as the director. So that stock is in focus as well. Naresh, let me come to you on a couple of these. Airtel and Z Entertainment. Would you hazard a punt here on either of the names?
So Bharti looks interesting for the fact we saw a decent correction, corrected from 1800 down to almost 1500, 1530. Today it has crossed the last few days highs and has shown good relative momentum. So expecting it to slowly scale back towards 1750. Z is a risk reward trade purely from the fact that the stock has bottomed out around that 115.20 mark, which was the March 20 lows. And we are seeing some announcements out there. But one would be better off keeping a strict stop loss at 120. And if this trade plays out, it could go towards 140, 150 also.
Dhananjay Sinha, what do you make of the current market action? What appeared stormy is now appearing quite charged up. Hello, he's on phone. Okay, never mind. I can see him on the phone, maybe some calls going on there. Kunal, for Adani group of stocks, let's look at that data. Most of the stocks have recovered from that mid-air turbulence. Even a stock like Adani Green, I think, is just 5-6% off from where it was last Wednesday. So has the storm come and gone? And when you emerge from a storm, you only emerge stronger.
Yeah, you emerge stronger. And yes, I think Adani Energy Solutions, Adani Green, Enterprise, I think these 3-4 names which we looked at the charts. Yes, these stocks have recovered and covered the gap and closed the gap which was created on that day when these stocks sold off by 15-20% and more, and subsequently over the next 1 or 2 days when these stocks had seen a sell-off. And the more encouraging point is that the volumes today are on the much higher side. So on the way down, the volumes were lesser. On the way up, the volumes are much more higher for these names. And so, one attribute could be that, some of these names have come back into the FNO space. The other could be that there's been good buying which has happened to these stocks. And we've been accustomed to this V-shaped recovery for many of the Adani group of names. I would still not venture into buying the Adani, green, transmission gas, etc. But I think if there's one stock which, traders can look at a bet, I think could be Adani Ports.
Okay. Okay, Adani Ports is that opportunity to perhaps bet on. But pharma stocks are doing quite okay today in the trading session, whether it's a Divi's Lab, whether it's a Torrent Pharma, whether it's Cipla, Alchem, Sun Pharma, Lupin, Syngene, all of these stocks are up. The top gainers in the F&O as far as universe is concerned. From the top 10, quite a few are in the pharma vertical. Dhananjay, if you can hear us now, what's the view on pharma and what names would you recommend from the pack?
So I think pharma is something that we have been positive on, and I think that there is good amount of traction happening there. See, the names that we have are basically Cipla is something that's top on the chart for us, followed by Sun and Orchid. So Orchid in particular, we are expecting a significant rise in the EBITDA over the next 4 years, and because of the product mix that is changing. So I think those are the stocks that we sort of like in the pharma space. We also have Pfizer, which we have been holding on for some time. So I think these are the stocks that we have in our preference list.
Here are some thoughts from Ashish Gupta on CDMO and why he's bullish about CDMO and which are some of the companies in CDMO. Well, you got a Divi's, you got a Loris, to some extent Piramal Pharma as well.
Within pharma, we are still not very constructed on the generic segment. I think some of the CDMO plays is really where there is more excitement.
BPCL is making a comeback. There is strong comeback which is coming back in Loris, and there is definitely a comeback which is getting. There is definitely a comeback which I think is visible in top pharma names here. Dhananjay, pharma sector per se is growing at 7-8%. Valuations are 30, 35, 40, even 50 times in select pharma. If
Sure.
top line is in single digit, not even double digit, what is this excitement all about?
So I think these are, you see, in the pharma space, it is actually very case to case basis. It's not a very generic view one can actually take as an industry. So I think it is to do with various molecules and formulations that are there. So it has to be specific to the factors that are sort of that are there in terms of the businesses that these guys are actually having. So it has to be very case to case basis. So I just talked about Orchid, for instance. We are looking at a significant rise in terms of the EBITDA that they could actually generate for the next 4 years. So it could multiply. It could multiply in the next 4 years. I think it is. Our analyst is basically saying that it could rise by almost like 3 times. So it's specific to the specific stock that we are looking at. So I don't think we should look at a generic industry story. Apart from that, I think what is also relevant is that in terms of the portfolio flows, portfolio allocation, there does seem to be a lesser risk out there. Visibility in terms of the outlook is stronger, whereas other components, major components such as BFSI, such as people have concerns on consumers, people have concerns on metals, etc. So I think also I would say the high growth sectors such as infrastructure, cement, etc. Those are actually seeing a significant downdraft as far as the performance concerned. So there does seem to be a sort of an allocation there's an allocation bias also that is happening in favor of the pharma stocks.
Allocation bias is indeed quite visible. But what about Bharti Airtel? Have you been tracking that one closely, Dhananjay? There was at one point of time the ARPU is going to go up, and of course all of that assumptions were being made. Then it went a bit quiet, but it seems like getting re-rated again at $1,600 a piece.
So I think people are betting on higher tariff rates and all. I think in terms of the utilization and data consumption, etc. I think those are those stories are behind us. So I think for the telecom, it is largely to do with the tariff hike expectation that people have, and I think that the competition on the pricing side is much lesser. So I think that price action is something that is sort of a major driver for the telecom companies.
Okay, so hold that thought. In fact, on that note, we'll slip into a very short break. But when we come back, we'll be discussing a whole host of stocks, so don't go anywhere. Well, it might be a green screen or a red screen. It doesn't really matter because the most important thing is that it's a Black Friday. So the sales are on across Mumbai and across the globe, to be honest. It's that one retail phenomenon wherein a lot of these attractively priced goods are available. And my colleague Anjali is right there at the ground zero at a mall to help us understand what exactly are the sales which are going on. And more importantly, what's been the feedback and the mood check on the ground. Anjali, take it away.
We are here at Phoenix Palladium Mall in Mumbai, where shoppers are coming in big numbers to make the most out of the Black Friday sale weekend. Now, this tradition started off in the West and where brands participate in this sale on the first Friday after Thanksgiving. And now this tradition has come to India, where we will also see Amazon participating in the Black Friday sale for the very first time this year. Starting from the Friday and extending up to the end of the weekend, brands across categories such as electronics, beauty, apparel, footwear, lifestyle are all holding Black Friday sales. Here at Phoenix Palladium, we are seeing that even premium brands such as Coach, Emporio Armani, Diesel, Guess are all holding Black Friday sale. There is a lot of consumer excitement, and there is surely an increase in footfall than a usual day at the mall, and is expected to continue till the end of the weekend, when we will see more shoppers come in and make the most out of this shopping bonanza.
Okay, so I know where I'm headed at 3:30 p.m. Thankfully, tomorrow is a Saturday, so I don't have to kind of fake a sick leave there.
You have a shift tomorrow. Check your roster.
Not tomorrow, not this weekend. I know where I'm busy this weekend.
Tomorrow's duty anchor has called up, so they've requested you to come and fill in. And I'm
Would
sure
you fill
duty
in
calls.
for me?
Duty calls.
Would you fill in for me?
I do use the power of being an editor to pass on the buck.
It's okay. You need to make the money to spend it, so might as well then come if that's the case. But nonetheless, what do you think, Dhananjay? Not of the sales, but urban consumption, because while rural recovery hasn't picked up the way we wanted, urban consumption has actually moderated a bit. At least festive season wasn't as great. Do you think, stuff like this, Black Friday sale and all of that is something that can spur the consumption?
Yeah, I think the main issue with the urban consumption is the fact that you had a significant leverage consumption that was happening till a few quarters back, and I think the key issue is also that the pace of growth of compensation is actually slackened and the cost of living is risen. So I think that is why we see a lot of inventory issues that are piling up with multiple segments. I think these sales things that are coming up essentially is an bit to clear the inventories and stuff. So I think it does come as a bounty for the consumer, which is actually facing very high inflationary scenario. So I think this is something that can boost some amount of volumes for the companies. We'll have to see what it does to the margins. So there can be a correction to the margins and stuff, and what does it imply for the profitability, something that we'll need to see. But by and large, it does look like the festive demand has been much more modest and muted, and I think the companies are responding to the situation. Yeah, so I think that is what it is. I think the rural demand, I think most people are expecting a better situation in terms of recovery and all. Most of the consumer companies are telling us so. And I think there are some lead indicators which are also corroborating that with respect to the government spends and wage growth, etc. There is some positivity, a very modest one, but definitely there does seem to be some bottoming out there, which could actually reflect in the coming quarters as far as companies are concerned. So you need to really look at staples versus discretionary versus autos, etc. We need to sort of look at the entire thing in different perspective. So I don't think it can be very generic over here. Certain segments can actually do well. Certain companies can do well. Whosoever has pricing power, whosoever has better volume growth, are things that we are looking at. So we are more constructive on the consumption space. So we'll see. We have a certain set of names that we're looking at, but definitely we are looking at a better rural demand scenario.
Anything which is popping up from the new FNO name, which to your mind could become a classic buy now? Nuresh?
Nothing really in terms of the new FNO names, because most of these names have already done well over the years. But as a trade going forward on dips, Zomato could be interesting.
Well, here are some, it's not thoughts, but here's perhaps a very comprehensive 360-degree analysis on the quick commerce industry. And I can vouch for it. Everybody on the screen has used quick commerce more than once in last 1 month. And India is changing. Is it speed over price? Is it convenience which is taking over? Quick commerce seems to be the new gold rush. And when the gold rush happened, it changed the dynamics of American geography. It led to the birth of San Francisco. So what will quick commerce do? How will that change the face of modern retail? Who will be the winner? Will the winner take it all? Is this space going to be changing the way how Indians would be consuming and shopping? Is quick commerce eating into big box retail, or this is pure margin, market expansion? All that and much more on this very special series, 30-minute episode, which ET Now has really stitched it together for our viewers. So here's a sneak peek of as to what you should expect.
It all began with one question. What if your needs could be met instantly? From malls to websites, and now to deliveries as fast as a click. Quick commerce is here. Big box, e-commerce, quick commerce. Each step faster, each step closer. But is us a city trend? Or could it revolutionize rural India too? At ET Now, we're diving deep into the data. Who's winning and at what cost? As billionaires and conglomerates race for dominance, who will lead the way? We'll also hear from those on the ground. Will mom and pop shops survive? Can quick commerce keep its speed, or will profitability become a challenge? Join us for an inside look at the fastest race in retail, only on ET Now.
Okay, stay tuned for that. December 4th is the day when we'll be discussing all about quick commerce. But Dhananjay, on that note, we let you go. Thanks so much for making time for us. But time now to take the closing trade strategies from our technical experts. Kunal, what's that you are recommending at the moment as a closing trade?
So I'll suggest a buy on Siemens. That's a chart which has started to look attractive. In fact, the stock is nearing a breakout of its 50-day moving average, which could be a potentially strong breakout, as well as the start of a trending up move for Siemens.
Okay, Siemens is a stock that Kunal is recommending as a buy. What about you, Naresh?
So that would be a buy on LIC Housing Finance. The stock is knocking at that 640 resistance, could break out in the next couple of sessions.
Okay, LIC is definitely doing well, and LIC Housing Finance is something that Naresh is recommending as a buy. A quick break and we'll be right back with more.
All right, Pashupati Advani joins us, and Pashupati, we were just discussing that everyone's been to Doon school has got a name, and you also had one, right? Somehow I don't know why I remember this. Oh, good old days, Purani Yade.
Purani Yade. Pashu, obviously. Animal.
Wasn't it Putti or something?
No, that came later. That I made for the Americans.
I used to think it was to be Putti.
No. ठीक है sir. Next
remembering your old young days. Remembering your old young days.
Is the market going to 30,000, 40,000, 50,000? मुंह में घी शक्कर.
I'm not saying it. You're saying it.
40 new scripts in FNO. That's going to churn the market. Get retail.
What's your view? What are you buying right now? What's keeping you busy?
Trying to stay out of trouble, honestly. I bought Reliance last week and crying.
But what is your view in general? Do you think markets have corrected enough and now we have that froth which was there and where everybody in a sense was just trading and making money, and be it BTST, which is buy today, sell tomorrow, had become buy in the morning and sell in the afternoon. Is that trend over?
No, I'll tell you what's happening. If the market is going to float in a range, then retail is not going to make money, and then it's going to gradually walk away. It's going to be losing money, in fact, because as we've seen, the options, if you buy options, they're extremely expensive. So they actually eat your money away. So I actually feel that, while markets go up and down, you go up and down 100, 200 points in a day, and you're still in the same range, it is going to make the retail investor go away, and that's not good. But again, I don't see any real trigger to take us to a new level. I think we are at these levels. It's a comfortable level, but FIs are still selling. There's a lot of excitement pulling money back to the US with Trump coming back into the seat, and so I think that's going to have some effect. We have to live with it. We have to live around it, and that's what it is. And money flows are definitely driving our market, and right now money flows are net negative.
But why are you worried about buying Reliance? It's doing okay, and I mean, there were a lot of people who said that it's now entering value zone.
No, absolutely. I'm not unhappy with the purchase. I'm just unhappy that I paid a slightly higher price than where it is right now. So that's all. So I'm crying about that.
I thought, Pashupati, I think that's one thing that we've learned in the markets. Never try and time for at least that small amount, because you're not going to catch the bottom or sell at a high, right? So
No,
it's
absolutely.
okay, par for the course.
Yeah, but I mean, it is fundamentally a good stock. I think there's going to be unlocking of different values as they do the listing for they're trying to get a US listing sorted, and they're trying to list other bits and pieces here. So let's see what happens. I mean, I think that it is fundamentally a very strong stock, and it's got a lot of businesses and a lot of things going for it. And it's a core part of the portfolio. I just added to mine.
So that's one of those good stocks. What's the view on HDFC and ICICI Bank then?
Again, they're doing great. I mean, HDFC's bank has got some unlocking because they've coming with a new issue of one of their subsidiaries. So that's obviously going to give some value. I mean, people do add the values once that gets listed. So it's up from, like the 1600 type level to almost 1800 in the last, I guess, 2 weeks. So I think that's been good for the stock. ICICI, it's there. It kind of follows. But again, I'm not as bullish as others are on Bank Nifty, because I actually think that the banking system has got some issues which are buried and will be buried for a while. But I think that one should not be jumping into the banking sector with both feet.
Let's look at Adani Group of stocks, and they've come back. So, Pashupati, same time last week it was quite gloomy. Now looks like the sun has started shining again.
Well, 4 of the stocks have been put into FNO, so I think that's helped a lot. I think that will provide some stability. Again, I think the world has changed, and I think the world is, I won't say for better or for worse. It's just that it has changed, and I think that this kind of stock is benefiting. Big is beautiful. We're seeing it in Reliance. We're seeing it in Adani. Now, I'd like to see all 4 of them. All the Adani stocks and all the Reliance stocks move up, then we'll be happy, and then the market will also be able to get into it and make some money. My current issue is that Adani stocks don't seem to be heavily owned by retail, whereas, for example, Reliance stocks are. So I think that they need to get some more retail participation into all the Adani stocks. And I think once that happens, I think we'll be much better off.
Okay, Naresh, what's your view around some of these blue chips, the Reliance, HDFC, ICICI banks of the world?
So HDFC and Reliance look, HDFC, ICICI and Reliance, all the 3 look interesting in terms of the structure. So you had HDFC Bank test that 1800 mark for 10 to 12 times over the last 3 years. And now the base has shifted to 1650, 1700. So some point of time over the next few months, that should be a breakout move. Now, same way, if you look at ICICI Bank, it has kept on making higher bottoms all through the last 1 year. In the near term at 1300 odd levels, it's not far away from the highs which it made in October, which was closer to 1330 post numbers. And the all-time highs were closer to around 1350 odd levels, 1350, 1360. So 2-3 percentage point away from an all-time high breakout. So this looks promising. So these 2 names are 50% of the Bank Nifty, 20% of the Nifty. If they take a trend up, pushes the indices as well. Reliance Industries, similarly, the stock has corrected 20-25% from the top. And now seems like a smaller base is made around this 1200 mark, and slowly a move towards 1350, 1380 could be possible.
Okay, point taken. So that's a view on some of these Reliance, HDFCs, ICICIs of the world. But which are the big themes that the market participants are watching out for right now? Hear out the expert take on some of that.
Consumers at zero growth, for me, that's a very clear opportunity here. Financials also, especially banks, right, have been a bit of a laggard for the longest time. It's also, yeah, right, I think the softest point for them is also over. By the way, where we would maybe stay away from a little bit is the two-wheeler space. Two-wheelers, or many of the companies, maybe not all, but many of them, they have just peaked in terms of revenue or also earnings momentum. That is probably going to be a multi-quarter trajectory, a bit on the downside, maybe also with earnings downgrades. The valuations don't reflect that.
Private sector banks, we like public sector banks, especially right now, PSU banks, we think there's a good risk reward. We like insurances. We own life insurance specifically in our business. So again, these are the categories within insurance, both general and life, both under-penetrated category, both have, significant growth ahead of us. So these segments we like, and within that, of course, you have to identify companies, but some of the capital market oriented plays, I feel in a shorter term or medium term have kind of little bit overplayed.
But the government's big focus on manufacturing, on infrastructure, that is another very, very big theme, right? I mean, in last few months, people have kind of course, because the valuations went up, and then maybe some of those stocks have corrected with the with some bit of disappointment on the earnings side. But I think post this election, we are all expecting in next few months a big order flow from the government, which will revive, which will kickstart again the public capex, which will give confidence. I mean, you need to inject cash and the confidence in the system, which I'm pretty sure government is doing it. And we will see the private capex also kicking in.
Those PSUs which are more long-term, which can be more long-term holdings because they tend to have better managements and better business profiles, and I think they are cyclical. And I think you have to differentiate between the two. So focus on those which are long-term wealth creators, and then those which are cyclical, you buy them during tough times, either for the business or for the industry. I think manufacturing is obviously much more broad-based, and India is playing into this now well spoken of, but China +1 and Europe +1 and so on. And I think that those are trends which will play out for many, many, many years. So manufacturing certainly is a very, very long-term theme. Defense is also a long-term theme because India's defense spending will pick up, and we also have some opportunities from exports and so on.
Okay, so that's a view coming in as far as some of those top themes are concerned. But let's put the spotlight on autos as well, because we're expecting the data for the month of November to come by. We'll get Shrishti to join us shortly, but before that, let me toss it to Pashupati to get a better sense. We just heard, one of the experts from UBS say that two-wheeler is a space you should stay away from because it doesn't look like it's going anywhere. Would you concur with that?
Well, I think people are looking at the PEs of two-wheelers and are actually seeing that they are down, and I think that's why there's a little bit of a step back, if you want to call it. We have to see a surge in numbers again. The numbers have been actually quite, even though there was a bit of hype around Diwali, but before Diwali, running up to Diwali, it was not as robust as people thought it would be. Let's see what happens in the next 3 months as to the numbers, the real numbers of two-wheelers being sold. Because the other challenges, each of them are tweaking with, make 250 into 150 or 175, and they're changing engines and changing models, which is change for the sake of change. So I think that they need to get the public back into the two-wheeler market, and that seems to have slowed down.
Whether the public goes back to that or not, but for now, what has the public done with respect to the auto pickup in the month of November? Let me toss it to Shrishti to get a better understanding of the November sales expectations. Shrishti.
Well, if we talk about the November wholesales data, that's expected to be a mixed bag because this time the two-wheeler as well as the tractor segment is expected to perform better. While it comes to the passenger vehicle and the commercial vehicle segment, we are not building in much expectations. But before we get to the numbers, do note that this particular number of the month will have a high base impact on a YY as well as on a month-on-month basis because of the festive sales. But on your screen, you will see the big trends that we are catching. In the two-wheeler as well as the tractor segment is the post-festive season sales growth that is continued is momentum. In the passenger vehicle space, though we are not building in much expectation on the number front, but it's a moderation in the kind of inventory levels that we have seen is something that we'll be watching out for, and that will bode well for the sector, and the commentary will be the key to watch. Commercial vehicle segment, the weak demand persists is what we are catching up. Let's talk number then, and firstly on the passenger vehicle side, we do have the numbers wherein from the rest of the pack, from the likes of Tata Motors, Mahindra, Maruti and Hyundai, Mahindra could actually shine the most. We are expecting a 10% growth on a month-on-month basis, but apart from that, it's from the likes of Maruti, Hyundai and Tata Motors, it's just a single-digit growth is what we are penciling in. In the commercial vehicle side, the demand continues to be the weak due to the lack of pickup across most segments. Just 1 to 2% growth on a YY basis is what we are building up. Now let's talk about the two-wheeler segment. Then here too, the rural sentiment is holding up strong, and amongst the pack, it's the TVS Motors that could actually shine the most, because here we are expecting a 7% jump on a YOY basis. But if we talk about some of the recent launches by TVS Motors, some of the reports are highlighting that is boding well for the company. But apart from that, a single-digit growth for rest of the companies is what we are penciling in. And lastly, from the tractor division, they are seen to be reaping the benefits of the positive rural sentiment from the likes of M&M. The expectation is close to 33,000 units, but when it comes to Escorts tractor division, 9,624 units is what we are penciling in. So November sales month is expected to be a mixed bag. Back to you.
Okay. The other one which I think Srishti did not mention is actually Ola, and they launched a gig. They launched a scooter which could be used by gig workers, and the stock went from 65 to 95, and it's come down. Pashupati, where is this company headed? I mean, we think Ola is only about scooters, but there's a battery business in it also. They are innovating. I mean, to grant to them, they want many first to their, to their advantage.
See, the thing about batteries is that there is some technology change happening, and we're seeing that coming with news coming out of China. I haven't seen anything that has shown a new technology that is good, but there is some talk of it happening. Now, obviously, if you're in the battery business and the technology changes and you can't move with it, you're going to have some issues. And I think that's what Ola is suffering from. The other thing is they're talking in India about doing battery swappings at stations rather than waiting for people to charge, simply as a way to keep the traffic moving and getting the people coming. Now, whether Ola is able to participate, whether the batteries are, there still has to be standardization of the auto batteries as well as the two-wheeler batteries. So let's see what happens. It's a huge space, lots of big players. Ola is one of them. I think it's going to be a very interesting space. And you've got the OMCs also sitting there saying, "Hey, we've got petrol pumps. Now what do we do?" And Toyota has obviously bet on hybrids. Some of the others like Tata Motors and all are saying we'll go fully, and of course MG, which is I guess Jindals are in talk and to take over majority. Those are basically saying we're going electric. So let's see what happens. Very, very interesting space and lots of potential for people to make money and lose money if you're on the wrong side of it.
Okay, point taken. But in the meantime, let's take some BTSC trades from our technical experts. Naresh, what's the buy today, sell tomorrow idea?
So first to the buy in LIC Housing Finance, setting up for a breakout move, stop loss at 631, target price of 655. Second is the buy in ICICI Bank, again setting up for a breakout move about 1300 odd levels, stop loss at 1290, target price of 1340.
What about you?
I'll go with the buy on SBI. That's a chart which is looking attractive, even though the stock has been sideways over the last 2-3 days. So would suggest a target of 880, stop loss at 820. And DV Slab is the other stock which has confirmed a swing breakout about the previous highs of 6100. So look out for targets in the range of 6400, stop loss at 6080.
Okay, fair enough. Those are the top recommendations coming in. But come next week, it's going to be an important one. We'll not only be dealing with the auto sales data come Monday, but perhaps we'll also get the clarity as to who is going to be the Chief Minister in Maharashtra. For now, the meeting today has been cancelled, but hopefully we'll get clarity next week. And then the MPC meeting is lined up in the coming week, so that will be also important to track. The expectation is there might be a bit of an action there. In fact, Pashupati, that is one common theme that I've heard from a lot of consumption corporates and experts, that consumption has stagnated and something is needed either from the RBI's end or the government's end to spur the consumption now. What's your take? Is that something which is very, very imminent and either the government or RBI will have to blink first?
you've seen retail taking money out of the markets and making money. That seems to have slowed down. And a lot of that money was coming into consumption. So that is also slowing down. So the thing is, how do we get retail to make money again, to spend again? It's whether it's the bottom or almost the bottom of the pyramid. That's going to be difficult because the way I'm seeing the market, it looks like it's floating, and it's going to be very, very difficult to make money, at least in the next 1 or 2 months. So I think that this trading of even the BTSTs, you'll make some, you'll lose some, you won't really be taking money out of the market. And I think that's what my concern is, that FIs are selling, our SIPs are still there, which is good, but the actual retailer who's been providing the liquidity and enjoying the market is actually not being able to make money, and therefore will leave the markets. And that's not a good sign.
It's 3:20, so let's just take one more view from Ashish Gupta on consumption. Here are his thoughts on where consumption, in a sense, is headed as a trend. Consumption can be divided into urban, rural. Now, quick commerce is also consumption. Everything which has got to do with consumption earlier was moving post-COVID in a linear manner. Then came the divide, urban versus rural. That's a very simplistic way of looking at it. But within that, now there are categories which are getting formed, which is, for example, I think travel is growing, another form of consumption, but discretionary spend is not picking up. Everybody is spending in terms of experiential and experiences, but nobody really wants to spend a lot in terms of basic necessities. Luxury is doing very well, and our colleague Anjali just mentioned that how Black Friday sales, in a sense, can really choke a lot of malls tonight. But in general, the consumption is growing at a rate which is not very impressive when it comes to the broader market per se. And here are some thoughts from Ashish Gupta.
Did see rural consumption picking up over the past 2 quarters, and what did this point, however, was that there were clear signs of slowdown in mass urban consumption. The feedback on the festive season also has been mixed. Initial part of the festive season was disappointing. Then we did have a pickup again the month of November, where there was some spillover of festive season. So we are still hopeful that rural consumption is picking up. I think if you see government spend action both from the center and state, that has turned towards much more on the mass market.
Tech Mahindra is, I think there is an analyst meet coming, right? Why do I remember?
Not Tech Mahindra, LTI Mindtree happened. Not that I remember of Tech Mahindra. Maybe it is impending and I missed that. Let me check.
Or maybe I'm just overthinking. Whatever may be the reason, Tech Mahindra, I think, is off from the day's low. But Shubhati, what is driving IT? I mean, IT is growing at 7-8%. You can be charitable and say 9-10% for the big ones. If the sector is growing at 8 to 9%, why are P multiples north of 25 really holding on?
Well, the thing about IT is we also have to realize what's happening with the dollar and the rupee. And the rupee is currently at 84.5 and seems to be hitting that. And as long as the dollar remains strong versus the rupee, it's going to definitely have some effect on where IT companies go. And I think that is the nervousness that is stopping people from jumping in. However, even 25, 30 PE is also expensive for IT stocks, particularly if you compare them to some of the ones that are outside India. So I think that I would be very cautious in IT. I'm not as bullish as most of the other people. And I say that, the fact that the rupee is having some problems against the dollar and RBI is having to sell dollars to stabilize, I think, is something that we need to be cognizant of. And I think that's going to make a big difference to us and our markets over the next months to come.
That's a take coming in on some of these IT counters and what's happening across the board. Just taking stock of the market, because it does look like we managed to hold on pretty much. 24,120, the highs of the day was 150 thereabouts if I have it right. So pretty much around that level. Adani group of stocks also doing okay. Piramal Pharma has actually done very well for itself. It started with a gain of around 6-7%. Right now it's 12%. Kunal, what's the view on Piramal Pharma specifically? Would you buy? Because I think pull up a 1 month chart or a 3 month chart and let's see how it's exactly performed. What's the view?
I think it's done very well for itself for the last 6 months or so. I think on a YTD basis, the stock is up some 90-95%. So far, I think it went to 300 plus levels, some time back, and then went into a correction, coming back towards 250 odd levels. So again, a decent correction, shaping up for the stock. And as a technical, tendency, we've seen the stock coming towards its 50-day moving average over the last 5-6 such corrections over the last 1 year. So it's not as if that the stock has moved into a very sharp recovery. Every now and then the stock gets into a corrective phase, settles closer to this 50-day moving average, like what we saw I think 3-4 days back when the stock was almost at 250-255 levels. And I think from there we've seen a recovery. So which means even at current levels, the stock could be bought into for a potential target of a new high 300 plus.
Okay, point taken. Pashupati, before we let you go, any last words as to which segments, sectors, stocks that you're looking at adding or looking actively at?
I'm actually still very defensive, and I'm looking at the good old faithfuls like cement, a little bit of pharma, very comfortable in those, a couple of PSUs. I'm just being very, very conservative because I think that you're going to get opportunities, and I'm still sitting on some cash.
Sitting on cash, not a bad strategy at all. The market might just give you better entry opportunities, though most of the participants believe that bulk of the correction, at least at the index level, seems to be out of the system. And overall, it's been an okay week for the markets. Not too bad. We're ending above the 24,000 mark, and as Nikunj was also pointing out earlier, it's a relative move that we had seen from last Thursday to today, almost a 900 to 1,000 point rally at the index level. But time now to...
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.